"Look, you're just not cut out for this," my boss, Chris, said coldly. The others pretended not to notice. "Make sure you collect the payment properly. Besides, it's not fun being around you." I had gone to a problematic client to urge and confirm payment since they were behind, but ended up returning after being begged, "Please, we'll pay next month." This troublesome client who never keeps promises was actually Chris's account. He forcefully pushed this annoying customer onto me. "You may be earnest, but you're not savvy. You're not suited for this industry," Chris sneered. I could hear the mocking laughter of my coworkers. There was no life for me there. Eventually, I quit the company I had worked at for 6 years and decided to return to my hometown. I'm Mike. I'm 28 and jobless. I moved from a small town to the city after going from high school to university steadily, landing a job at a major company's branch office. Despite achieving fair success as a promising newcomer in the glamorous city, I ended up being envied and begrudged by seniors, colleagues, and bosses. "Mike is getting too cocky," they would whisper, ultimately leading to my resignation. After the holidays, I packed my bags, and on the train ride home, I sighed, wondering how to break the news to my parents. But they welcomed me back without a word of reproach. It was a long-awaited return to my childhood home. I decided to take it easy at my parents' house for a while. Settling back into my old room, I was reminded of my student days. My family has run a general store in the shopping district for generations. Everyone in the district knows our shop. From birth, I was cherished by the adults in the neighborhood. And both my parents and the residents loved the local festivals. My grandfather and father were drummers in the festival music band, indispensable to the summer festivities. From a young age, my father taught me how to play the drums, and before I knew it, I was part of the ensemble. Maybe it's in the blood. The sound of the drums stirs my soul. I eagerly participated in the practices. The adults in the community would say, "A festival isn't complete without Mike's drumming." I would practice with the adults several times a week, not just for our neighborhood festival, but also performing at events in neighboring towns. The sound of the drums lifted everyone's spirits. In school, I was a well-liked figure with many friends. But children's interests are fickle. As my classmates' interest in drumming waned, and I hung out mostly with adults, friends gradually drifted away. Even after starting middle school, I continued to engage in drum practice, which, unbeknownst to my peers, made me the subject of odd looks. By this age, a so-called social hierarchy forms in class. Ken, a handsome soccer player, reigned at the top. His father was a well-known company president, wealthy, with excellent grades, and popular among the girls. Fans from other schools would even come to watch his soccer practice. I joined the newspaper club and spent my free days drumming. Not from a wealthy home and with only average grades, I found myself ranked low in the social order and became a target for Ken's teasing. Do you actually enjoy life, drumming with old folks? That drumming is essential for our community events. Come listen sometime, it'll cheer you up. Community events, how lame. Ken and his entourage would burst into laughter. Being in an inconspicuous club and mostly involved with community events, I was ridiculed as uncool and too serious, eventually being treated like a contagion, as if hanging with Mike will make you old. I took out all that frustration on the drums. Unfortunately, I was in the same class with Ken until the third year of middle school. While I was fed up, I can't forget the opening ceremony that year. Into our unchanging class came a new student. The transfer student, Emily, appeared to be the daughter of a major company executive, petite but well-mannered, with fair skin and long black hair that caught everyone's eye. She quickly became the object of admiration from both boys and girls in the class. Surprisingly, Emily ended up sitting next to me. "Mike, nice to meet you." I remember her talking to me in a quiet, bell-like voice. "Nice to meet you too. Let me know if you need any help." Normally, I wouldn't say such a thing, but for some reason, I blurted out a line that didn't sound like me. However, I felt that Emily seemed a little relieved to hear it. But after school, Ken and his followers would confront me with nonsensical accusations like, "Don't get cocky," and "Don't you dare do anything weird to Emily." I thought it was unnecessary to go that far just because I sat next to the class beauty, but after every class, I was forcibly shooed away from my seat with a mic, "You're in the way," as the whole class flocked around Emily. Emily seemed to have after-school activities, as she often went home right after class. One day, the community association received a request for a drum performance at a foster home, and I left school earlier than usual for the meeting. On my way home, I stumbled upon Emily. Even though we sat next to each other, we had never really talked, but I found myself calling out, "Emily." She turned around in surprise. "Hey, Emily, are you going to your after-school activity today?" I asked nervously, and she replied with a sigh, "Yes, I have lessons again today. It's violin lessons today. I like it better than studying, though." "Violin, huh, that's cool. I've been learning the drums since I was a kid." I immediately regretted my words. I was thinking that community drumming couldn't be compared to her violin. But Emily's eyes widened with interest. "Are you talking about taiko drums?" "Yay, that's right. I play with the guys from the community association during festivals and stuff." "Well, that's amazing. I'd love to see that." Her unexpected response left me dumbfounded. Seizing the moment, I gathered my courage and invited her. "I'm playing at the summer festival, so if you're free, you should come." "Okay, it's a promise," Emily replied with a smile. I could feel my face flushing with heat. "Oh no, I've got to go. Let's both do our best, okay?" I watched her smiling face as she left, and I kept replaying that moment in my mind even after I got home. At school, our interactions remained the same, but sometimes she would say, "Is practice going well?" or "I'm looking forward to the festival." It was as if we shared a secret just between us, and that alone made me happy. Meanwhile, in class, Ken's entourage was pushing the idea that Ken and Emily would make such a perfect couple. Ken and Emily. Sure, they are both attractive, and maybe they would be a good match. But still, I felt an uncomfortable fog settling over my heart. Ken was getting pumped up, saying he would ask Emily out. He told his groupies to invite Emily to come watch his next soccer game for support. It looked like he was using other girls to make sure she would come. Emily initially declined, saying I'd have lessons on that day. But after persuasion from everyone, she agreed to go and support the game. This bothered me, and I became restless. But the day before the practice match, Emily said to me, "Good luck with your practice. I'm really looking forward to the festival." Boys being simple creatures, just that made my heart soar. I heard after the break that Ken's team had a big win in the soccer game, thanks to his performance. But something was off in the classroom that morning. Both Ken and Emily were silent. During the break, the girls crowded around Emily. "Come on, you've got to respond to Ken's feelings. What's wrong with Ken? He's so cool." Apparently, Ken had asked Emily out in front of everyone after the game. But Emily didn't respond and just went home. "Cut it out, guys." Emily's just bewildered by the sudden move. Unexpectedly, it was Ken who intervened. However, his forced smile suggested that his pride had been wounded and he was trying to hide his desperation. From that day on, Emily became quieter and stopped talking to me. Then came the last day of the semester. "Good luck with the drumming. I'm rooting for you." After the ceremony, as I was about to leave, Emily spoke to me with her usual smile. But that was the last thing she said to me. She didn't come back for the start of the next semester. Our teacher said that Emily had transferred again due to her dad's work. I never got the chance to show her my drumming after all. Ken quickly started dating another girl, and Emily was gradually forgotten by the class. Years later, I found myself thinking about Emily again. She was someone I couldn't forget. Maybe my first love. But as an unemployed guy, I couldn't afford to dwell on memories. I decided to take a break at home and look for a job. It didn't take long for the community association folks to find out I was back, and the neighbors, who had aged quite a bit, came by to say hello. "Hey, Mike, you got some free time now, right? How about hitting the drums again? You are back for a reason. Let's play together." The community drumming had continued even after I'd left for a job, and it seemed they were often invited to perform at festivals and events. There was a performance at the community center coming up, and everyone was asking if I would join. I hesitated at first, but remembering Emily, I decided to go to practice. Mom and Dad encouraged me, saying have fun. After years of not playing, I was plagued by muscle pain, but my skills hadn't faded. "The kids still got it," the community members said, satisfied. The performance at the community center attracted a big crowd. When we started playing, I could feel the audience being drawn in. At 28, I was the youngest, but the other members' skills hadn't declined at all. When I struck the final beat, the applause was thunderous. I felt elated by the performance. "Your playing was terrific." An elderly woman in a wheelchair approached me after the show. She looked very dignified with glasses. "Your performance gave me such energy. Feels like my injured leg will heal faster now." "Thank you, it's great to hear that," I said. "When's the next show? I'll definitely come to watch." "Well, I'm actually job hunting right now, so I'm not sure when I'll play again." I found myself sharing more than I expected. "You better find a job fast. I want to hear you play again. What kind of company would fire someone like you?" She was inquisitive, but I didn't mind and ended up chatting with her for a while. "You're 28. That's the same age as my granddaughter. She was just here," but just as she was about to continue, the community folks called out, "Mike, help us clean up, will ya? Thank you for today. Hopefully, we'll meet again if fate allows it." As I joined to clean up, I saw a young woman coming to pick up the elderly lady. "Hurry up, don't want to overstay our welcome." I was rushed to help with the cleanup, and soon the two ladies were out of sight. My drumming had the power to energize others. The words of that woman made me feel glad I had continued playing drums. A few days later, "Mike, there's a class reunion invite. What are you gonna do about it?" Apparently, there was a middle school reunion happening soon. There had been a few before, but they always coincided with busy times at work, and I never attended. Well, I was busy, but more than that, I didn't want to see Ken. Why not go for a change of pace? You might even meet someone nice. "Yeah, Mike, you should meet up with friends your own age. You've come all the way back home after all." Persuaded by my parents, I decided to attend the reunion to get a change of scenery. On the day of the reunion, I headed to the hotel that was the venue. It seemed there were other groups using the hotel today as well. Many people were bustling about. I wondered if everyone would remember me. Feeling a bit anxious, I cautiously approached the reception where I was greeted unexpectedly warmly by familiar classmates. "Hey, isn't that Mike? Long time no see. You're back in town. Let's catch up over a drink." Among them were Ken's old entourage, but as adults, they no longer treated me the way they did back then. I was relieved, but that was naive of me. "Our boss is such a jerk," someone griped. "Yeah, the one with a face like a pug," others added. They all complained about work, voicing their daily frustrations. I wasn't the target, but it reminded me of the unpleasant atmosphere of my old company. The women were even bragging about their romantic conquests and affairs. Disgusted, I regretted coming when suddenly, "Ah, Ken, you're late," was shouted, and a cheer went up from the women. Ken entered, dressed in a flashy suit, signaling his grand entrance. "Wow, Mike, it's been ages. I was surprised to hear you'd come." Ken grinned as he approached me. "Hey, long time no see," I replied, trying to brush it off, but Ken slapped my shoulder mockingly. "You got fired, didn't you?" His loud voice made sure everyone heard, and the mocking laughter of classmates followed. "Really? Wow, Mike, that's lame." "Why do you know that?" "I heard from Chris that his company hired some loser. He's a senior from my college." It was a surprise that Ken knew Chris, but their similar vibe made sense. Seen you on social media, still drumming with the old guys. If you've got time for that, you should be job hunting, Ken mocked. My drumming at the local events was all over social media. To my classmates, it seemed ridiculous, and they snickered. I was about to leave, annoyed, when something cold splashed on my face. Ken had thrown his beer at me, eliciting more laughter. Hey, don't ignore me. You're still boring as ever. That's why you don't have a girlfriend. A jobless single guy. You are pretty much done for. The crowd laughed even harder. I wiped my face with a handkerchief, feeling miserable. What a mess. Typical you. Emily's coming today, you know. Emily. My heart raced and my face felt hot at the mention of her name. Oh my God, that Emily is going to come. All the memories came flooding back. But I was too miserable, wet from the beer, wanting to disappear. I wonder if Emily's still single. She must have a handsome boyfriend by now. The classmates speculated, but then someone shouted, "Here comes Emily." There she was, after several years. Her long black hair flowing, her fair skin, and her firm lips. I was in awe, even as I wiped the beer from my face. "Hey, you are here to see me, right?" Ken joked, reaching out to her. But she brushed his hand aside and strode straight toward me. Emily took out a white handkerchief and began wiping my face, and I heard bewildered voices from the people around me. "Stop it, you'll get dirty." "What's the big deal? Mike is my boyfriend," Emily declared. I was as surprised as everyone else. "What?" While Ken frowned unhappily. "Come on, knock off the bad jokes. Don't associate with this loser." Ken raised his voice in annoyance. "Go have tea with the old men. You're an eyesore. Get lost." As he said this, he tried to separate me and Emily. "Come on, let's go have a drink," Ken said, trying to pull Emily away forcibly. Ken, there's someone I'd like to introduce you to," Emily said, shaking off his hand. "What? Are your parents here? That's troublesome." Ken smirked. It was then that a familiar female voice interjected, "Ken, you seem quite full of yourself." The owner of the voice was an elegant elderly woman in a business suit. It was the same woman who had come to watch the drum performance in a wheelchair. But today she stood on her own feet. It seemed her injury had healed. I was confused about why she was there. "Mrs. Smith, why are you here?" Ken froze in surprise. It appeared that Mrs. Smith was someone Ken couldn't stand up to. "We're having a company anniversary party in the back room, but when I heard you were here, I thought I'd pop by." "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. What a terrible oversight," Ken said, but still held onto Emily's hand. "Ken, would you mind letting go of my granddaughter's hand now?" "Your granddaughter?" I exclaimed. Emily was the granddaughter of Mrs. Smith. Ken, his face sweaty with panic, finally let go of Emily's hand. "You're as selfish and arrogant as ever. You always had to act the part at work, but I had no idea you were like this in real life." "It's a misunderstanding. I just wanted to make everyone laugh and cheer them up. Like that excuse will fly. I think I'll have to reconsider our company's dealings with yours." "Ken, that's lame." The cronies started among Ken's entourage as Mrs. Smith and Emily looked at me intently. "Your drumming really touched my heart. It healed my injury so quickly. That's what it means to uplift people. I saw that performance too." It turns out Emily had been at the venue too and had heard my performance. I had left to help with the cleanup, but at that moment, it was Emily who had come to pick up Mrs. Smith. "I always regretted moving suddenly in middle school and not being able to hear your drumming at the festival, but I guess fate works in mysterious ways." Emily smiled, probably the brightest smile I'd ever seen from her. Ken, having lost his earlier bravado, mumbled an excuse about having something to do and left the reunion hastily. His cronies soon followed suit, and the reunion quickly wound down. "Emily, talk more with him. Don't be so quiet like you used to. It won't do," Mrs. Smith advised. Mrs. Smith gave Emily a gentle push on the back and then headed to her own company's party venue. Emily and I made eye contact. Since we're here, do you want to grab a drink? I was nervous and couldn't keep eye contact, but Emily nodded happily. We then talked about the times when we were students. When she transferred to our school, Emily was worried about fitting in. The social hierarchy was already in place, and she couldn't feel at ease in that oppressive space, but she felt a sense of security with me, who was always calm and had a peaceful aura. That day at the community center, I really wanted to talk to you, but it had been so long, I didn't know what to say, and before I knew it, I couldn't find the words, but I thought maybe I'd see you at the reunion, so I decided to go. I'm glad I got to see you, Mike, but sorry for lying about being your girlfriend. She apologized, but honestly, what man would be upset by such a claim? All I could do was respond with an awkward laugh. Emily had moved back to town this year to help with her grandmother, Mrs. Smith's company. Grandma keeps saying her injury healed thanks to your drumming. When I told her you were my classmate, she insisted I bring you along. And actually, the company is hiring now. Would you like to try out for an interview? Me? Really? Just a referral. But don't say just me. You should have more confidence, especially with how wonderfully you play. Emily encouraged me. After a few days of consideration, I decided to interview with Mrs. Smith's company. I got the job and spent several months training at another branch out of state. This company didn't have anyone like Chris or Ken, and when I met Mrs. Smith again at headquarters, she gave me her full approval. You look good. I'm counting on you from now on. Emily and I ended up in different departments, but she often makes time to see me, and we spend our breaks together. Take good care of both your work and Emily. Thanks to you, she's been smiling more lately, and let us hear your drumming again. I'm looking forward to the next time. Mrs. Smith would jest. The drumming I've done since childhood has brought this connection. It always gives me energy and strength. And whenever I think of Emily, my heart pounds like the beat of a drum. I haven't been able to share my feelings with her yet, but one day I hope to convey them properly.